Welcome to episode 21 of the Pirate Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, the Pirate Marketing Captain, Ben Perry. And today we're going to talk about what do you do to get good at sales, or rather what I did to get good at sales. But first, a little bit of a milestone, because yesterday we opened up the doors to the new Facebook group, The Salesmanship. And it was totally awesome because we let in almost 100 people into the group, and they were greeted by a pirate treasure hunt and lots of things pirate related. So if you're into fun, if you're into having really cool experiences and learning about sales and marketing, then go check us out on Facebook. Just type in The Salesmanship. Those are 3 separate words. The Salesmanship, and we'll pop right up. Or if you just want to just skip right ahead and get on the wait list for the Salesmanship, like actual program before we launch, then you could visit thesalesmanship.co. That's thesalesmanship.co. So yeah, pretty cool. We had people going through the pirate treasure hunt, people commenting like, this is so much fun and this is so cool. And I also dropped about, probably about like 20 different reels in there. Each one of those reels is no more than a minute long, and they are highly, highly bingeable. So they're totally binge worthy. So if you do go and you start scrolling through Facebook inside of the group, there's plenty of value for you there. So much so that one person actually made it to the end of the treasure hunt. I mean, it's a treasure hunt for a reason. I'm giving away a little something special, little PDF. So he got his hands on this, and then he sent me a text today over Facebook Messenger, and he said, hey man, I went through your pirate treasure hunt and I downloaded the One Call Close Essentials, and today I used it and closed a 10K deal. So awesome for this individual. So happy for him. Today we're going to talk about how do you get good at sales. And I think that, the powerful thing about this particular episode is I'm going to take a page from Hormozi. He actually said that with the advent of AI right now, there's lots of how-tos that are out there. I mean, you could just type into ChatGPT, how do I, and then use your imagination, and ChatGPT will probably be able to tell you all the things, give you a full book. In fact, I've seen people already starting to say that they are creating full-on books using AI. What is going to become even more rare is, instead of asking how to, you can transition your content to here's what I did. And that's what's going to be powerful about today's episode, because none of the things that I'm going to tell you are theory. These are all things that I have either tested or learned from another mentor, in which I've invested my own time, energy, and resources into, and have implemented for myself. So I've got 3 different bullet points here. The first being learn or use a script. The second one is get lots of reference experience. And the third is study winners. So let's just kind of break this down. Hey, Ben, how did you get good at sales? I started using a script. And the first script that I ever used was actually from a gentleman from down under, from Australia. He calls himself, or at least he used to call himself, the Sales Warlord. So the very first sales training I ever attended was with Gulliver and Leela. They were holding a residential in San Diego in March of 2014. And this was essentially my coming out trip, where I had just left the Navy just a couple of months before. In fact, I got out of the Navy in November of 2013, and I had immediately hired a coach and bought this ticket to attend this sales training all in one fell swoop. But I didn't have the money. but I had almost $9,000 saved up from my 10 years in the military. So I pulled all that money out from my military retirement account and paid the mentor, and then paid for this ticket, and then also paid for a fully tailored 3-piece suit from Men's Warehouse. I mean, this thing was a pinstripe suit. I was looking to be money when I went to this official business, retreat. And so I show up to San Diego. By the way, it's super cold and like the snowpocalypse in Connecticut. But I get to San Diego and it is warm weather, baby. I'm talking like, and I'm on the beach, like where the venue was. It was right there on the water. And I'm just like losing my mind because I'm like, how is this possible when on the other side of the world, I'm freezing to death? I mean, there was tiki bar music being played. There were, plenty of men and women with various amounts of clothes on and barely being there. And, at the time I was like, man, I've made it, I'm in paradise. But here I am. And the very first day I'm actually getting ready at this like YMCA type hotel. It's a hotel. That was a YMCA that's now turned into this hotel. I had so little money that I ended up sleeping in like a dorm room, right? It was just a small little room. It was actually smaller than my office here. And it just had a bed and a dresser and a little mirror. And that was it. And I had to actually go shower in the community shower down the hall, which was just totally interesting. So here I am, I'm getting ready. I'm putting on this fresh, like 3-piece suit that was freshly tailored for me. And I'm walking from my motel to the venue. And it's probably about a 15-minute walk, but I don't mind because, hey, I'm in sunny San Diego. And I remember having my iPad. And at the time, there was a song that was playing on the radio. It was like number one. And I just kind of got the vibes for it. And I started playing Happy by Pharrell. You've heard that song? I'm so happy. So I'm like playing this thing on my iPad. I'm walking down the street in my like 3-piece suit. I mean, I look like money. I've got this purple tie. I mean, like I was looking good, feeling good. And then I show up to the event and everybody that's there is dressed super casual. So it was like, the music was pumping in my head. And then when I noticed that everybody was not dressed up, it was like the music screeched to a stop. You'd like, record skip. And I was like, I am definitely overdressed for this. And I didn't get the memo, and I didn't know yet that internet marketers just kind of are doing their own thing. They're just like, they're not in the corporate world. They're not super dressed up like I was. And in fact, that's part of the allure. So anyway, I do this 2-day residential with Gulliver and Leela. Gulliver teaches, his first day, all of the philosophy. And the second day is when you're supposed to get on the phones and start to have calls and close people. Well, the mentor that I'd hired, because I didn't have any leads of myself, like I didn't know what I was doing. My mentor gives me a list of leads from his business to call. He's like, here you go. Try this out. So I'm calling these leads and I'm having to like psych myself up because it's like a room full of like 20 different people. And I'm talking like there were some like powerhouses like in the room when I was there. In fact, let's see, there was and this black coach's name is Victor something. I think he lives in Hawaii. He was there. Peter Scott was there. And Garrett J. White was there. And a whole host of other people that were kind of like in Garrett's world, because Garrett had like recommended people to come out to Garrett, to Gulliver's thing. So anyway, and I'd seen Garrett doing his Facebook Lives, just a few weeks before. So it was really interesting for me to see, this guy that was like always yelling at the camera and just being very, enthusiastic and passionate. But in person, man, this guy was cool and calm as a cucumber. It was super interesting. But anyway, there I am on day 2, and I'm like taking these calls, and I am like shaken, not stirred. This is my first time ever dealing with sales. And I remember being on a call with one guy in particular. He didn't have any money. And Gulliver was like, tell him to fucking give you your credit card. And I'm like, give me your credit card. He's like, no, I said use the wow. And then, so I'm like, give me your credit card. So anyway, he gives me his number and I write it down, even though he doesn't have any money. And I'm like following, because like Gulliver's in my ear. And like, so I end the call and he's like, why didn't you cuss? I told you to say, give me your fucking credit card. And I was like, dude, I don't know. I just don't talk to people like that. And I don't these days, really. But that was like my first kind of baptism by fire into the sales world, into the world of sales. So fast forward a couple of years, and I, go on to learn other methodologies around sales, and I end up closing people for my own business. And eventually I ended up going and being an advisor at Traffic and Funnels, and they had their script. And so I used their script. And what was really interesting was, the sales training that I had invested in before, even though Traffic and Funnels taught sales, Taylor himself wasn't really there to kind of train up people that just didn't really know what they were doing. And in fact, in one event that he held, he said, here's how I vet salespeople. And I swear to God, this is exactly what he said. He's like, I basically drop them in the middle of the Amazon jungle without any food or water. And if they can survive after 3 days, then they can stay. Whoa, pretty interesting, right? Well, my first week at Traffic and Funnels, the entire sales team and like executive team left to Paris. Apparently there was some shindig with Jay Abraham. And so I was left with me and another guy. It was just the two of us to hold down the fort for all of Traffic and Funnels. And so they had projected for me 5 for the month. It's like, let's see how he does. Let's project him for 5. That first week happens, and then they all come back. And then Taylor asks the other sales rep, how did the new guy do? And he said he closed 4 last week. And he's like, oh, wow, we're going to have to raise his projections. Well, part of how I was able to close those 4 is because of due in part to what I'm talking about and what I'm going to be sharing with you here today. And the first was I had a script to be able to follow, framework, if you will. They're like training wheels. So the reason why you want to get a script, and now there's all different types of scripts that are out there. There's scripts in various different industries, scripts for different offers. But the reason why you want to start with a script or with a framework is so that you actually have something to hold on to that is going in the right direction, especially if you're new. Because the thing that you don't want to do in sales is just what comes naturally. Because if you're not naturally a very influential and charismatic and persuasive person, then what's natural is not going to help you close sales. So you want to use an actual framework or use a script. Okay. The second thing that I did in order to get good at sales is I got lots of reference experience. Okay. So when I was at Traffic and Funnels, actually before Traffic and Funnels, for the 6 months after I left the first training with Gulliver, my mentor at the time gave me this long list, and I spent every day for the next 6 months calling up these people cold and running through the script that I got and getting rejected. One after another, after another, after another. I closed 0 during that 6 months, but I had passion. I had the can-do attitude, but I didn't actually, like, my mentor wasn't actually teaching me sales. I like to call him this particular mentor, the human Rubik's Cube, because I just couldn't understand what he was talking about half the time. It was all concepts and nothing that was actually tangible. Hey, but that was on me. That was my very first person I ever hired. I know now, or at least I learned, hey, you might want to do some due diligence and vetting with the person that you hire. But, I still give myself, an A+ for that, because I made a choice. I could have waited around and figured out which coach would be the best coach for me. But because I took action, it led me to having that whole experience with Gulliver and Leela in San Diego, which led me eventually to where I am today. So totally appreciative for it. But that 6 months I was on the phone, I was calling all these different people, didn't close any of them. It was only later on that I found out that the list that my mentor gave me was a list of burned leads already. Like, they'd already told him to off. It was quite interesting when I learned that. And then I was like, damn. And I was still able to have, some conversations with some of those people. So I had those reference experiences, but then I also had my own reference experiences once I hired other coaches and had my own sales calls. But I would say what really helped me to get good fast was having lots of calls back to back in a short, intense period of time. And I would say that, the 18 months that I was at Traffic and Funnels was that particular time period, because I was already on the right path, but the ability to be able to quote unquote learn on somebody else's dime is invaluable. And so I was able to have all these leads and to be able to call these people up and get feedback, and be able to learn. And one of the things that they helped me with is something I'm going to share with you in the next bullet point. But having lots of reference experiences allows you to fail fast, because when you fail fast, you just get all the failure out of the way. And then you chisel all of the parts that aren't good until the only parts that are remaining are the parts that actually help you to close. The parts that actually help you to get further along in the call. Because if you haven't realized, a sales call is like playing Mario, right? When you play Mario, you play like the old classic Mario. If you die in the middle of the level, it's not like you can start at the checkpoint and keep going, right? You have to start all the way over at the beginning of the level, and then you get to try again. Well, that's the way the sales are, right? So sales is like, hey, if you didn't beat the bad guy, then you have to go through the entire level all over again in order to get to the bad guy again. And so sales is a lot like that. It's frustrating at first. You feel like the pit of despair because it seems like nothing that you do is working. But don't discount all of the small, minor references that you're learning. All of the little tips here, little tricks there that eventually build upon themselves to where you become somebody that can go from the start of the level, not only to the end of the level, beat that boss, but you can continue to do that for levels upon levels upon levels. So there's nothing like having a whole bunch of reference experiences for you to be able to chisel yourself. So that's part of how I got good. The third way that I got good at sales, study winners and be mentored by somebody who's further along than you. I studied obsessively. Like, I would wake up at 5:30 a.m. and I would study people. I would be poring over their sales call. I'd be listening to cadence. I'd be listening to tonality. I'd be listening to little bits. I'd be listening to the philosophy behind, why is this person saying this? Where are they coming from? Why are they even using this? Why did they say that? And if I could ask them, then I would ask them. And that obsessiveness, I think you need to have, at least if you want to be good. Like, because at least with sales, there's no casualness about this. If you want to be casual, go be an employee. But if you're in sales, then you're probably somebody who wants to take their own destiny into their hands, their own financial future into their hands. And you know that it's going to take a little bit of elbow grease and a little bit of you going out there and making shit happen. Right? So, study winners is the third point here. I remember when I first started at TF, I was very high on the empathetic part, but I wouldn't challenge people very much. And the way that they said it, their words was, I needed to increase my aggression, and I just didn't have it. And so they gave me permission to kind of push the bar a little bit in order for me to actually challenge somebody. And a part of being able to influence and a part of being able to lead is your ability to be able to lovingly challenge somebody, to bring them to a carefrontational conversation. And so I just didn't know how to get there. Just wasn't in my DNA at the time. But through repetition and through them encouraging me to go further and to push a little harder, it wasn't until I did go too far in a couple of my calls, and I'll admit I went full Darth Vader there for a bit. It wasn't until I went too far that I knew just how far I could go. And then I learned where that line was. But if you don't push, if you don't challenge yourself, then you're not going to grow. So get yourself a mentor who is further along than you in that area to be able to help you. And then study the tonality. For me, I would type out. I would be listening to a call, either from myself. If I came up with something that was genius, I'd write it down. Or if I heard somebody else do it, I would listen to it and I would write it down. Okay. So I would transcribe it, and I wasn't using AI. There's a difference, I think, there's some people that say, hey, write in your journal, right? There's something about like writing in an actual physical journal with an actual pen. I believe that to be true. And I think that's true for a lot of things, for most things. But when it comes to sales, write down and transcribe with a keyboard, because sales happens so fast, and there's certain intonations and cadences that happen so quick that it's just easier to be able to type out when you're hearing it versus writing it out. I'm a very, very slow writer, but I can type almost as fast as what I hear, right, whenever I'm playing back a sales call. So I would be transcribing. And I think the value is in you listening and transcribing with your own words, with your own, what was that? Well, rewind it again. What was that again? Rewind it again. What was that again? Versus using AI. Because I think if you try to use AI to transcribe and then try to go back, you're not getting the full benefit of the transcription process. This is how I'm able to take a concept, take a bit, go transcribe it. And because it takes me a minute or 2 or 5 or 10 or 30 or an hour to be able to go through 5 minutes worth of bit, is how I'm able to make it my own. And when you do that, week upon week, upon month versus year after year, you cannot help but become good. And when you know you're putting in that type of work, when you know that you are obsessed with getting better, you have zero guilt for all of the money, all of the commission that you will make, because you know you're worth it. You know you deserve it. And I would submit that if you're not making the kind of money that you would like to be making, then there's possibly a part in the back of your head that believes that you don't deserve it. And there's a funny way that the universe works where we end up getting the things in our physical experience only to the degree that we feel internally that we deserve it. Ooh, that was good. Go back and write that down. Seriously, like, that's the cost of your admission to this podcast alone, is just realizing that if you go and you do the work and you feel like you deserve it, that's 80% of the work right there. So let's recap episode 21, right? How do you get good at sales? Well, I can't tell you necessarily how to get good at sales, but I can tell you how I got good at sales and then tell you what I did. And that is 1, learn using a script. It's going to help you. It's going to be like training wheels. 2, right? You want to be able to get lots of reference experience, get lots of reference points for you to be able to just chop up and get through all the no's, get through all the bad parts until you become like Neo. You're just like, I get it. Like, I am the Matrix. And then 3, study winners and get mentored by somebody who can listen to your calls, review your calls, give you feedback, who's more further along than you. If you haven't joined the Salesmanship, go to Facebook, look us up, the Salesmanship, or you can go to my personal Facebook profile, fbben.com. All right. For everybody who is listening, if you go and you join the group, up until 100 people, you will become a plank owner. So I think there's literally 10 spots left. And I'm giving a very special gift for everybody who is a plank owner. So go there, do that now, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Savvy?